Sigmund Freud once said unexpressed emotions will never die. They are buried alive, and they will come forth later in uglier ways. Most people hear that and think he's talking about anger, about grief, about obvious pain. But what if the emotion that's destroying your life right now was never expressed because you were never allowed to feel it in the first place? That is what childhood emotional neglect does. And today, I'm going to show you exactly how it lives inside you right now, disguised as your personality. It's called childhood emotional neglect, or CN. And unlike physical abuse, unlike the stories you can point to and say that is where it started, this one leaves no visible marks. Because it is defined not by what happened, but by what never did. No one hit you. No one screamed at you every night. Maybe your parents worked hard, kept you fed, kept a roof over your head. But there was something absent. No one asked how you were really feeling. No one sat with you in your pain. No one taught you that your inner world, your emotions, your needs, your desires actually mattered. And so you adapted. You did what every human being does when their environment fails them. You survived. You built habits, defense mechanisms so efficient, so invisible that you stopped seeing them as survival. You started calling them your personality. These are those habits. Pay attention because some of these will hit harder than you expect. Sign 1. You pride yourself on never needing anyone. You handle your own problems, your own breakdowns, your own illnesses. You figure out yourself. You don't call. You don't ask. And society applauds you for it. They call it resilience. They call it strength. But here's the truth. It is a fortress. When you were young, you reached out. Maybe not loudly, maybe it was just a look, a small cry, a quiet, I need you. And what came back was silence, distraction, irritation, indifference. Your brain, which is a survival machine, performed a cold calculation. Asking for help leads to rejection. Therefore, I will become my own source of everything. That's not strength. That's a trauma response wearing the mask of strength. And look at the cost. You cannot truly connect with someone you refuse to rely on. Real intimacy requires the risk of letting someone and letting them see you in your weakness. But you deleted that button from your internal operating system a long time ago. And now you're surrounded by people and completely alone. If you can't be seen in your need, you cannot be fully loved. And deep down, that's the thing you want most. Sign 2. Someone asks how you feel and your mind goes blank. Not because you're hiding something. Not because you're being difficult, because you genuinely do not know. In psychology, this is called alexithymia, the inability to identify and describe your own emotions. And it is one of the most common fingerprints of emotional neglect. Here's what happened. In a healthy childhood, a parent acts as an emotional mirror. When you cry, they say, "You're feeling frustrated." That hurt you. That scared you. They name what you're feeling. They validate it. They teach you that your inner world is real and worth paying attention to. But in a neglectful environment, no one held up that mirror. Your emotions were ignored, or treated as inconvenience, or was simply never acknowledged. So you did the only logical thing: you disconnected. You severed the wires between your body sensations and your conscious mind. Feeling emotions was useless. There was no one there to help you process them. And now, as an adult, you watch other people cry at movies, feel passionate about things, get angry, and know exactly why, and you feel like you're watching life through a pane of glass. Present, but not really there. That distance you feel from yourself, from your own life, is not a character flaw. It is the scar of being emotionally alone at the age when you needed someone the most. Sign 3. You apologize for things that are not your fault. Someone bumps into you in the street. You say sorry. You ask a question in a meeting. You apologize first. Your house has a single book out of place when a guest arrives. You apologize for the mess. You exist in someone's space, and you apologize for taking it. This is not politeness. This is an internalized belief that you are a burden. If you grew up in a home where your needs were treated as inconvenient, where your emotions added to the stress, instead of being welcomed, you learned to shrink. You learned that the safest way to exist was to take up as little space as possible, to be low maintenance, to be invisible. Every "I'm sorry" you say when you've done nothing wrong is a child saying, "I'm sorry for needing. I'm sorry for being here." I'm sorry for being human. That's not humility. That's the slow erasure of your own right to exist. If this is resonating, if you're 2 or 3 signs in and you're feeling something you can't quite name, stay with that feeling. Don't push it away. The rest of this video is exactly where you need to be. And if you know someone who needs to hear this, share with them. Sometimes we can't say the words ourselves. Let the video say it for you. Sign 4. You do not trust your own judgment. You second-guess everything. Every decision, big or small, is followed by a spiral. Did I say the right thing? Do they actually like me? Was that the wrong choice? Should I have done it differently? You seek reassurance constantly, not because you're weak, but because you were trained not to trust yourself. Here's what happened. When a child says, "I'm sad," and the parent responds, "No, you're not. You're fine," or says nothing at all, that child learns something devastating. My internal compass is broken. My perception of reality cannot be trusted. So they stop trusting themselves. They start looking outward for cues about what is real, what is acceptable, what is true. Nietzsche said, "The individual has always had to struggle to keep from being overwhelmed by the tribe." But what happens when the tribe that overwhelmed you is your own family? When the very people who were supposed to confirm your reality denied it instead? You become a person who lives in permanent uncertainty. Not because the world is uncertain, but because you were never given the foundation to stand on. The person who was supposed to build your confidence simply wasn't there. Sign 5. You become a different person depending on who you're with. You're remarkably good at reading rooms. You sense shifts in other people's moods before they do. You adjust your tone, your opinions, your energy, all of it to match whoever is in front of you. People call it emotional intelligence. They call it being adaptable. But here's the truth. You weren't born this way. You were trained. In a home without emotional stability, a child becomes a surveillance system. You monitored your parents' moods not because you were curious, but because your safety depended on it. You had to know, is this a safe moment to ask for something? Are they about to explode? Is it okay for me to be here right now? You became an expert at other people's emotions because you had to be. And in doing so, you lost something irreplaceable as self. You never had your own unique traits and emotions reflected back to you. So you learned to become a mirror instead of a person. Now, as an adult, you sit alone sometimes and ask yourself the most haunting question: who am I when no one is watching? Sign 6. You are everyone's therapist, and no one is yours. You are the person people call at 2 a.m., the one who stays late to help, the one who listens, fixes, advises, supports, the strong one, the reliable one. And when you have a crisis of your own, you disappear. You don't call anyone. You retreat. You handle it alone. This isn't selflessness. This is a survival strategy you built in childhood. Maybe the only time you received a positive response from your parents was when you were useful, when you took care of your younger siblings, when you didn't cause problems, when you're the easy one. You learned that your value lives in what you do, not in who you are. That love is something you earn. That care is a transaction. And so, as an adult, when someone tries to care for you, when someone offers to help, to listen, to be there, something inside you recoils. You wait for the other shoe to drop. You think, what do they want from me? You feel the weight of a debt you didn't agree to. Receiving feels dangerous because you were never taught that you are worth something simply for existing. That is the deepest wound of emotional neglect. Not that you were hated, but that you were taught quietly, consistently, without a single word, that your needs were secondary, that your existence was conditional on your usefulness. Sign 7. You will do almost anything to avoid conflict. You swallow your anger. You suppress your boundaries. You smile when you want to scream. You call yourself laid back or not one for drama. But the truth is, you are terrified, not of conflict itself, of what comes after. In your home, any ripple in the water could cause the withdrawal of whatever warmth existed. Any disagreement could mean silence. And to a child, silence is not peace. Silence is abandonment. So you learned. You made yourself agreeable. You made yourself easy. You kept the peace at the cost of your own integrity, your own truth, your own soul. You became a people pleaser, not because you were generous by nature, but because the alternative felt like annihilation. And now, every time someone raises their voice, Every time you sense tension in a room, something ancient activates inside you. Your body floods with the same fear the child felt. And you do what the child did. You make yourself small. You give in. You apologize. You disappear. That is not your personality. That is survival memory. And it is costing you every relationship you have. So where does this leave you? Hyperindependent, emotionally numb, apologizing for your existence, trusting everyone's judgment but your own, shape-shifting to survive, earning love through labor, running from the silence that feels like abandonment. If you recognize yourself in these patterns, here is the first thing you need to understand. There is nothing wrong with you. Your brain did exactly what a brain is supposed to do. It adapted. It built armor. It kept you alive in an environment that was not giving you what you needed. Every single habit I described today, it was intelligent. It was necessary. It saved you. But the war is over. You're no longer that child. The environment has changed. And the armor you built for a battlefield is now too heavy to wear in ordinary life. It is keeping out the very things you need: love, connection, rest, truth. Healing does not begin with a dramatic breakthrough. It begins with a small, almost invisible choice. It begins when you say, "I prefer the window seat," instead of "I don't mind." It begins when you pause before you apologize and realize you have nothing to apologize for. It begins when you let someone carry something for you, even when you could carry it yourself. Jung said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." But you cannot become who you are while wearing the mask of who you had to be. The habits you built were your armor. Honor them. They carried you this far. But you are allowed to put them down now. You are allowed to need. You're allowed to feel. You're allowed to take up space. Because the truth is, you were never too much. You were simply never given enough. If this hit you, if you saw yourself in even one of these signs, share this video with someone who needs to hear it. And follow for more raw truths about the mind, the self, and the darkness most people refuse to face.